Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of Uncaged. This is episode 8. My name is Mike Larkin, and always by my side is the one and only DC himself, Mr. Daniel Crimmins. How are you, Dan?
Mike, I am doing well. It is chilly again for April in New York, but it's nature can't make up its damn mind.
No, well, here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, we are nice, we are hot, we're feeling good. It's springtime. You know how it is, man.
Stop it.
I know. I'm sorry.
How far are you from the beach?
Not that far, absolutely. Actually, where I live, we're right close to the beach, right on the nice little Ocean Boulevard strip of the beach. Yeah, buddy.
So you could probably walk to the beach.
Pretty much. Pretty much, if I wanted to, yes. I know.
Hate you.
I know, man. I know. I'm sorry.
I'm like from any kind of sand. I'm like 20, 25 minutes to a half hour.
Oh,
I hate it.
but yes, driving distance, folks. If you've ever been to Myrtle Beach, if you come out of the Myrtle Beach International Airport, you're going towards Ocean Boulevard. The hotels are right there, so the beach is pretty close to where I am. Absolutely, driving distance. Yes, it's about 10-15 minutes.
But you got to deal with hurricanes, so you got that.
Oh yeah, I got hurricanes. You got snow, so that's what we got. That's what we got.
Winter is coming.
Oh yes. Now, Game of Thrones aside, I will say this, sir. We have a great episode for you guys today. Now, we figured since it is draft week for the WWE, it starts this Friday of this recording. We are going to talk about some of the best and worst draft picks in the history of the WWE, and there have been some bad and good ones.
And I think also we should address, some of the rumors that we're hearing for, the WWE draft, which depending on when this comes out, we'll have to see if those ring true. I think one of the names I've heard Ilya Dragunov to SmackDown, which I think makes sense.
Him and Gunther for the Intercontinental title. Oh yeah.
Which they're two. I mean, they had a couple matches on the Indies, which were bangers. The two that they had in NXT UK, phenomenal.
Yep.
You hear Braun Breaker, but I don't know. I don't think yet.
I mean, he's still got that. I mean, first of all, thank God they turned him heel. I'm going to leave it like that.
Oh, he needed it.
He needed it. Now, this feud with Carmelo Hayes, I'm looking forward to just because he's now the challenger in this chasing the title back. I think there's more of a story there. Another rumor I'm hearing, because you mentioned UK, Tyler Bate is another possibility.
Yep. I've heard them. I've heard Pretty Deadly.
Oh, well, they slept with the fishes this week.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this. Like you mentioned, I'm looking at them from people. Also, I got to mention this from the UK. I got to get your thoughts because the story's been out there that the former grizzled young veterans want their release. They were denied, and it looks like we're going to see them out of their contract in October.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ties in with you. There was the report, I believe it was last week, that Endeavor and Nick Khan are looking to cut somewhere around the lines of like $50 million.
I mean,
and they've said they're not cutting talent, which, okay, yeah, maybe. But at the same time, like, maybe, they've done nothing with them.
I mean, the schism thing was different. If I'm just to assume, like, we don't know, I'm thinking they wanted to go back to doing the grizzled young veteran stuff. And they're like, no, we want you to do the schism stuff. And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to just write out our contract and do whatever. Or they're just going to sit home because we saw this week on NXT, they're going to get a shot at the tag titles. But if they lose, they can't challenge for them as long as Gallus is the champion. So I don't know what they're going to do. I know Joe Gacy in that group. I enjoyed the schism. I thought they fit perfectly. Yeah. But if they go to like Impact, there's a great tag match I could see there with the Motor City Machine Guns. If they go to AEW, I could see them against the Revival. So, I mean, there's options.
Yeah. And, maybe Triple H can pull something, which, as an aside, I think I know it's not draft related, but in a way it kind of is. It was announced that whichever brand Roman gets drafted to, which I've heard rumors that he's going to go to SmackDown, or he's going to stay on SmackDown. I've heard he's going to go to Raw. That whichever brand he's not on, the new World Heavyweight Championship is going to the opposite brand, which, you know me, I love the classic design. A lot of people don't care for it, but I love it.
Well, someone brought to my attention, it's like, oh, they just slapped their big logo in the middle of it. I'm like, have you seen the AEW title? Have you seen the UFC title? Like, it's
literally every world title. Impact, Ring
Yep.
of Honor, um,
MLW.
MLW, AEW, New
New Japan.
Japan.
Right.
Like literally, it's just they're less pronounced. It's got the modern look on a classic design. It's like when Dodge brought back the Charger, or Ford, brought back the classic look of the old Mustang. What do people love? They love vintage. They love retro,
Mhm.
and it works. Like I like it. I mean, a couple little tweaks, but I think it's going to look really nice. And I think honestly, who do you put it on? Gunter.
Agreed. I mean, he's one that definitely would deserve that, prestige as he should. I mean, I look at it from a stance too as well. At least they did something that followed up because everybody went ape shit when they heard Seth Rollins versus Omos next week at WrestleMania Backlash. And then we finally found out, MVP brokered the deal so Omos could have another big match, which I'm fine with that. And they explained a little more. But I mean, I'm actually looking forward to, like you mentioned, the draft that we have coming up and then it
Yeah.
continues next week. Backlash is going to be good. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest in a street fight now. I think that's going to have a lot of.
With Bad Bunny, he gets it. Like, as a celebrity, he gets it. Him, Logan Paul, they get it, and I love it. I'm all for it. Whatever he decides to do, good for him. It's not like some of the celebrities that we've grown up with, seeing in the ring. I'm not just talking like Snooki, that match, or when Impact had Ronnie, that they were just doing it for money. Bad Bunny's a fan. He gets it. Logan Paul, he gets it.
Mhm.
And if they get it, good for them. And if it gets eyes on the product, okay. But props. I gotta just say, props to Snoop Dogg for seeing that they were in a bad spot at Mania and saying, "Okay, you know what? I gotta save this." And that was him.
Yep. That was Snoop Dogg just going in. And I mean, a lot of people wouldn't know what to do, and he did it. And I mean, we mentioned people like Snoop Dogg, Bad Bunny, Logan Paul's re-signing. I think it's going to be very interesting to see where a lot of the celebrities go as far as wrestling go, because god dang it, man, we've had a lot of great stuff and a lot of star power from that side of things. And I mean, other thing I was telling you about, for those who haven't seen, the news has been broken that looks like Naomi's going to be making her
Good
debut
for her.
wrestling at the Impact taping. I got to say this right now, man. You look at that division with Deonna Purrazzo, Mickey James, and a lot of the talents that there. I think she fits right in there.
Yeah. You know, I don't blame her for not wanting to go back. I think had Vince not come back, I feel like she would have gone back there.
Yeah, I mean, with Vince McMahon, what he's doing now, mind you, he's saying stuff remotely. He doesn't have the ultimate say. That's Triple H, but I think a lot of people see that input that's there, and it kind of turns people away just because of that input he does have, so to speak.
Exactly, and it's the way it ended. Um,
Yeah.
and also CM Punk showing up at Raw.
I mean, from what they said, he had a brief exchange with Triple H. He cleared the air with The Miz, and then he left.
I think what it is, and I think, well, it could be one of two things. One, I'm still, until he shows up on AEW TV, I'm not convinced he's going back there.
No, I mean, with everything that's going on for the Young Bucks camp and his camp, it's going to be very interesting to see how that dichotomy goes. And then, I mean, I know that, well, that's the thing too. I've said this with you, like both sides are very wrong. CM Punk, I mean, I could see it from his side,
Yeah.
oh God, yeah. But I mean, I also look at it from the stance too as well. I also would say this is what happens when you have wrestlers be the EVPs of a promotion. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And so, one of two things. One, it could have been as a fu to Tony Khan saying, "You know what? You want to fire me? I'll just go back here."
Right.
I think that option is less likely. Do I think he's going back to AEW? I do.
Yes.
Realistically, what I think it was, I think this all out media thing I think it taught him a lesson. I think he realized, he was becoming the very thing he hated.
Hmm.
And I think, you know, this was kind of like his way of just burying the hatchet, of, moving on, and not necessarily for I don't think he did it for Vince or for Triple H or for them. I think he did it for himself, so that he can let go, that he can move forward with life. Because at the end of the day, holding grudges, it does you, the individual, no good.
Right. And that's the thing too, man. When you have all that grudge, I mean, it's better to just move on and move forward, which I think he is going to do. And I look at it from a stance too as well. This is where we've come from where we were last fall to where we are now, in almost the middle of 2023 here. And I think all signs look to a lot of returns and a lot of really shakeups, so to speak, with
Yeah.
professional wrestling. And now here we are at the draft, man. I'm going to start this out here because, god dang, Dan, I got to bring up this first and foremost, put it at the forefront here. I do have one of the worst draft picks here, and I'm going to start out with this one. And you know where I'm going with this. I'm talking about 2000, and I'm going to say 2009 time period. I believe it was '09. JR and Michael Cole got switched. Michael Cole goes over to Raw with Jerry Lawler, and then JR goes over to SmackDown with Taz.
And
2009, folks.
I remember that year, and that was a year where they didn't tell the talent where they were going.
Right.
And I remember JR's reaction. He was pissed.
Pissed.
Which supposedly this year is the same. Like, they haven't told talent where they're going. So when we find out, they're finding out. Which to me, it I don't like that.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, from what we have going on there, and I mean, I look at it from a time period where Michael Cole was. I mean, first of all, when you associated to SmackDown, you always thought Michael Cole and
Yeah.
Taz. And when Michael Cole started with Jerry Lawler, it was whatever that gave us the vintage and all that good stuff with Cole, and then that led to him being the heel announcer in the coal mine and that whatnot. And then you have
And then it's boss
Boss
time.
time. It's boss time. And then you had JR and Taz over there, which I'm going to say right now, I thought they were a good tandem on the announce table.
Yeah.
I know even Todd Grisham did a little bit there in '09 too, but yeah, it was something to see. Just that JR, I have that image of his face just so angry that they split him and the King up for that
We
time.
got Mauro Ronaldo for a bit. I thought he was fantastic. I will say I love what Wade Barrett is doing on SmackDown.
I think here's the thing. I love Pat McAfee, but if you just give me Michael Cole and Wade Barrett every week, that's fine.
I
He's
enjoy that.
Me too.
I would honestly, I would have Pat as sort of like a special attraction, like the big shows, kind of thing. Um, you talk worst. I'm gonna mention what I believe is the biggest draft of all time.
Go ahead.
2005.
Okay.
This is mainly after WrestleMania 21, and I'm talking first round. It's the highlight reel. Jericho says, I have the first draft pick to Monday Night Raw from SmackDown. Now, background, Jericho didn't know. They offered to tell him, but he said, no, I want to be surprised. And then you hear Cena's music, and you see him come out with the WWE Championship. And just the reaction was just, what?
What? Because this is like you mentioned, 3 years into the draft, the WWE champion, the main champion, had never been drafted.
Yeah. And then if I remember, I think the following SmackDown, Batista was drafted to SmackDown,
Yep.
which you knew that was going to happen.
Well, here's the thing, and I love that you brought this up. So, for those that don't remember this, there was originally supposed to be a six-way match for the new SmackDown Championship, and JBL wins it. And Teddy Long's like, wait a minute here, player. You don't win this. You have the right to face the number one contender. You're the number one contender for the new superstar drafted to SmackDown. And here comes Batista. JBL's like, what the hell? I just won the match. Why am I not the champion? And that led to Batista and JBL, which I'm going to say this right now. Like his first start on SmackDown, Batista wise, was a little rough because he came from those great matches with Triple H as his dance partner. Then he had the JBL feud, which I'm going to say right now, it sucked. Then he had the Eddie Guerrero feud, God rest his soul. That was great. Then he got hurt, and then he comes back and he feuds with Mark Henry. Then, if you recall, remember the infamous SummerSlam fight with him and Booker T after they're in the SummerSlam shoot. So he had a
Which
rough start on SmackDown.
I heard that Booker won that fight.
Oh, yeah. Finley and many people have attested that Booker T fucked him up.
I wouldn't want to piss off Booker.
Well, from what the story was, for those that don't recall, they were doing the SummerSlam 2006 shoot, and Booker and Batista were talking because Batista hated being on SmackDown. He says, I got nobody to face, and Booker's like, hello? Like, hello? Like, hello?
Former five-time WCW champ.
Yes. And this led to a scuffle between the two, and I'm going to say right now, their feud was crap because Booker sandbagged him a lot, and you could tell they really did not like each other at that time. So it was
I don't think they still don't like each other.
From what Booker said on his show, they buried the hatchet, but they're not going to have like Christmas dinner together. But they buried the hatchet, which
That's
is
sort of like a I'll go my way, you go your way kind of thing.
exactly. But I mean, at that time period, yeah, Batista's run on SmackDown, and when Cena got to Raw around that time, remember he was originally supposed to face Christian 1-on-1, but then they turned it to him and Jericho for the title, and him and Christian. That was my issue with that because I remember Cena and Christian had that like little, face to face at the Rumble when he was rapping on him and Tomko. Then they did a thing at Backlash where Christian rapped, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna see John Cena and Christian. They're pushing Christian, but then they just made Jericho heel, and then it became a triple threat.
Yeah. You mentioned worst draft pick. I got one that's worse than that.
Okay, hit me.
Paul Heyman, general manager of SmackDown, drafted to Monday Night Raw.
Oh, the 2004 draft where Paul Heyman quit. Because he didn't want to work for Eric Bischoff. Oh, that was horrendous. Yeah, again. Oh, that was hilarious. He just stormed off and walked out. And then you didn't see Paul for a while.
Yeah, I think he went. I think he went to work behind the scenes as a writer. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he went back to being a writer, and the new GM of SmackDown would be Holla 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 play it. No, around that time I think it was. Remember Kurt Angle got hurt and he was the GM, and then Teddy Long. Yeah, so yeah, Paul Heyman. That was early.
The longest tenured general manager of SmackDown
history.
You want to know how he lasted that long?
Because
if you step to him, you're going to go one-on-one
with the
Undertaker.
With the Undertaker. Oh, one of my favorites.
Now, I love that turned into a meme.
Well, first of all, it's classic Teddy Long. That or we're going to have a tag team match play. So, I mean, and he lasted. Teddy made it run, man. He went from being He did. He went from being a manager with Rodney Mack and Thuggin' and Buggin', and then he just went to the SmackDown GM, and he stayed there till.
And you know what? He's a sharp tack. He's sharp.
He is. I got to put a worse one in there. I'm going to see if I can top you on this because this led to actually the 2004 draft. So they put Triple H over to SmackDown, and Triple H, you see him spit the water at the Raw draft in 2004 because, what are you doing here? So Triple H goes to SmackDown for that night, and then following that Raw, the draft to SmackDown, they substituted Triple H to go back to Raw. They made a deal, and they brought over to SmackDown the Dudley Boys, who would then go on to be a heel tag team managed by Paul Heyman, which also led to them and The Undertaker in that Concrete Crypt match, which was terrible at the best. Yeah! Paul Heyman and Concrete. Paul Bearer and Paul Heyman.
God rest his soul.
Paul Bearer did that. It was a horrible match, and it was a horrible angle, folks. But Paul Bearer got buried in cement. Concrete Crypt.
If I remember that correctly, like that was their way of writing him off because they said that Paul Bearer was in really, really bad shape.
Oh, he was, dude. I saw him at Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 20 coming out with The Undertaker. He was up there in weight. Oh, bro. Like, and here's the thing too. Like, you talk about that. Like, so they get the Dudley Boys over to SmackDown, and then they get Booker T. Which, if you remember when Booker T first started on SmackDown, he didn't want to be there. He's like, I felt like I was going to the minor leagues, and they turned him heel. Which, at that time period, he needed. He needed something because he wasn't doing a lot.
No. And sometimes something as simple as that can work. Mm-hmm. Other times, no. I mean, I think you look in 2001 with the draft when they split up the Dudley Boys.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add one to that. So 2002, they split up the Dudleys. Bubba went to Raw. Devon became Reverend Devon on SmackDown. And I remember when Scott Hall fought Bradshaw at Backlash 02. If you remember, they also split up the APA. They put Farouk on SmackDown and Bradshaw on Raw as the hardcore champion. Now, here's my thing with that. Farouk did diddly squat when he went to SmackDown by himself. Nothing. Like, nothing. Bradshaw at least had the hardcore title, and he was the main focal point of the hardcore division. At least
Well,
he was doing something.
they turned Bradshaw into a joke with just saying, "Damn."
Well, yeah, Braun Simmons was damn, and they just had Farouk doing whatever. And Bradshaw, at least, maybe he had the hardcore title, like we mentioned. He had the design. He was the head of the hardcore division, but he was like at least doing something. Ron
Yeah,
Simmons teamed with Devon very briefly, and like they did nothing with Ron Simmons.
and it's sad. Like they could have made him into a huge star,
Yeah, they could have absolutely.
and I just it's a shame. It really is a shame. Um, so I'm looking forward to seeing SmackDown this week. Seeing who goes where.
All right, me too. And I mean, we're speaking of here goes here we go where here. So I'm gonna put another one out here. John Cena getting drafted to Raw and getting drafted to SmackDown, and getting drafted back to Raw on the same night.
That's stupid.
That was ridiculous. Because Michael Cole's like, "Oh my God, what's going on? We lost a war. You smile. Oh my God!" And then at the end, haha, we told you we get him back. So John Cena is on SmackDown at the beginning of the show, and then by the end of the show, he's back on Raw.
Oh yeah, and I think you also have might have been 2016. Finn Balor getting drafted from NXT to Monday Night Raw.
Yes, which they put him in that tournament. He beats Roman Reigns,
His
and
first night.
his first night on Raw, and then he gets to beat Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship, and then he gets hurt.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, we had that not happened and had, he remained champion, he was, who he was scheduled to drop it to?
Oh,
Guess.
oh God! At the time, oh God, Finn Balor. So Seth Rollins, he beat.
Nope.
No, was it Brock Lesnar?
Yes, it was.
Oh God! So
And from what I read, it was supposed to be like another like squash.
kind of like what they did at the Royal Rumble, like years later with him and Brock.
Yeah, think of Brock versus Kofi,
Yeah.
but take out Kofi, put in Finn Balor.
Ooh, yeah. Ugh. Well, that's actually a great point too, man, because you bring up like Finn Balor with NXT. Like there was a lot of great culture on that time too. Like when they brought up Alexa Bliss,
Mm-hmm.
they brought up Carmella. Like I remember Alexa Bliss around that time in 2016. Like she came in like hot as hell. She had the feud with Becky Lynch. She won the SmackDown Women's Championship. Carmella feuded with Nikki Bella out of all people around that time. If you remember, like she
Yeah.
came in and feuded with Nikki Bella, and just that whole thing was just like really interesting to see like Carmella, because if you remember, like they didn't really bring like Enzo and Cass, they split, they were on Raw and she was on SmackDown. Like they split up the dynamic trio there.
I think part of the problem there is they should have brought them up together as a cohesive unit.
Yeah, I mean they let Carmella stay a little bit longer in NXT. I mean, she was just there, didn't really do much, you know.
I mean, from what I've heard, she's out with some medical issues,
Yeah,
which folks, if you want to know what it is, you can Google it.
look it up. We're not gonna say it. Just look it up if you really want to see it.
I think honestly, I think she's underrated. Like she knows how to get people to hate her and react.
But she's always been a great character. Like when she first debuted in NXT, she was like the hairdresser from Staten
Yes,
Island, and
your stereotypical like Staten Island girl, like New York attitude.
right, but she was. What was funny about it is she's playing a New Yorker, but she's from like Massachusetts, and it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
but you know what? Is she that far off from the character?
No,
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 like
it's
you.
literally her.
I mean, like for those of you that don't live in New York, like New York can go from one extreme to another.
And I have cousins in Staten Island, so I'm very much aware of the attitude.
You may be a transplant, but you're still in your heart. You're still a New Yorker.
You are still a New Yorker, yes. When you go to whenever you move to, like for me, South Carolina, or people go to Florida, you're still a New Yorker at heart. You really are. The New Yorker never leaves you.
Like us New Yorkers, we are blessed with an intolerance for bullshit.
Yep, true that. True that.
And I, one thing I will say that I would like to see this year's draft surprises.
Agreed. I mean, we talked about the NXT stuff, but I'm very curious to see like where they put like a lot of these returning stars. Like, it's really interesting and intriguing to see where they go.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see Champa and Gargano on the same brand. I
Oh,
think they're gonna reunite DIY, which we need that.
oh yeah. I mean, with Boogs on Raw and Nakamura on SmackDown, I'd love to see them link up again because I'll be honest, they have not really been doing much with Boogs and that Elias thing. I don't get it. You know what I'm
They
saying? I
haven't
don't.
been doing anything with Nakamura either.
Well, he's feuding with Karrion Cross now.
Well, they are doing something with the two of them.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a good feud though. And what I think about it too is as well, like Karrion Cross coming off the feud with Rey Mysterio. I mean, how many times are we going to see Karrion Cross and Madcap Moss? You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's better to do something different.
Yeah, it's. Uh, I would hope it. It said that this is going to be kind of like the reset in the permanent, Triple H era.
Yeah.
So I will say this, and I'm not making it because there's reports that Vince had his hand in the cookie jar of Monday Night Raw again.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the renegotiating of the TV rights deal. I kind of have a feeling that's kind of why he's getting involved, is making sure that that's. Now, does he stick around after, or does he kind of take more of a backseat approach?
If I was him, I would take a backseat approach.
Especially with that lawsuit that broke.
Yes, especially with the lawsuit that broke.
I read a little bit of that. Oh boy.
Yeah. It's, it, the thing is too, man. Here's the thing: we've always kind of excused and kind of brushed over the rug with Vinnie Mac that just about his actions and everything. But it's just like he needs to go away. And now, speaking of Vinnie Mac, it's when you brought him up because I was actually going to segue into another one of my draft picks that I had. So, 2007 obviously was the year of Do-Rag Vince. What up, G? Excuse me while I whip this out. He was the ECW champion, and he wore do-rag after getting shaved bald at WrestleMania 23 by Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bobby Lashley, and the former president of the United States. They did that. I know they did that. Vince gets a do-rag. He becomes ECW champion, feuds with Bobby Lashley, him, Umaga, and Shane. And then Bobby Lashley, who was the ECW champion at the time, gets drafted over to Raw.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this right now. So having him lose that ECW championship to Vince, and he's on Raw, and then he wins the ECW championship back, and then since he gets drafted to Raw, it's vacated, and then we have to crown a new ECW champion, and it was supposed to be that guy, but the person that won it was the new member of ECW, John E. Nitro at the time. So I wanted to ask you about that situation there. Bobby Lashley to Raw, Johnny Nitro to ECW.
That was an interesting situation to me. It truly tragic what happened, and you know that guy thinking what we could have had.
Well, him
Um,
and CM Punk would have been amazing, and he was supposed to win.
oh yeah, that would have been an absolute banger. But you know, yeah, it is what it is. It happened. Um, if that had never happened, we wouldn't have gotten. If the ECW on Sci-Fi stuff never happened, we would never have gotten NXT.
Correct. And I'll add on to that. Like Bobby Lashley was red hot at this time. Now, mind you,
Or,
this was before he left. So I remember he was in that Night of Champions match, and then he had that great match with Cena at the Bash 07, and then he was like done. Like right after that, he left. He said bye. And then Johnny Nitro happens and he becomes John Morrison on ECW. So I want to ask you about this because this ties into it too. Johnny Nitro, then that transformation of John Morrison. What'd you think of that originally and how he changed his name and really reinvented himself as ECW champion?
I think that was what name change number 2.
So he
He was
started.
John Hannigan initially on Tough Enough.
Yeah, then he was Johnny Blaze with Eric Bischoff as the.
That is change number 1. Then it was Johnny Nitro.
Yep.
Then it was Morrison. Then.
Well, when he left WWE, he became Johnny Mundo.
Yeah. And then Johnny Impact and Johnny Elite, and then
Johnny whatever.
Then just according to Taya, he's just John.
John, yeah. But no, that's.
And I will say this as an aside, it's a damn shame that they never put the world title on him.
Yeah, we talked about this in the last episode, man. Like with everything that went on, like he was so hot at the time with the ECW title. And then you make him a babyface. He wins the Intercontinental title. Then you move him over to Raw. And then not even. He had that one match with The Miz, but that was it.
You know, if you're the WWE and you're Vince, you want a guy who's jacked. You want a guy who looks good, tan, you want the muscles. You want that. You want a guy that, you can shop around to the TV sponsors and say, look at this guy. Look at my champion.
Yep.
Look at my number 1. You can put him on the trucks. We've all seen him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that face. You look at other talents, people like, on the women's side, Bianca Belair.
Yep.
Have that TV look, look like stars. That they never pulled the trigger on him. But then we got to realize this was during the era of Cena and Big Dave.
Yes. And I mean, also around that time in 2007, I have actually a funny one here. So the Sandman was on ECW. He gets drafted to Raw. He has that match with Carlito at the Great American Bash. That was horrible. They bring him over to Raw to feud with Carlito, and then that was it for the Sandman.
His last match was a battle royal to determine the new Raw general manager.
Yes,
it came down to William Regal and Sandman, and I mean, I wanted Sandman to win it.
I thought that would have been fun, but we got Sir William Regal, Lord William Regal.
And the first thing he does is turn the lights off. Just turn it off.
Just turn it off. Just turn it off. He was great. He's probably one of the most underrated Raw general managers ever. He was so funny.
I cannot sing the praises of William Regal enough.
Umanga, Dad. Umanga.
Umanga. And don't forget Triple H.
Triple H. It's so good. Well, he was the commissioner though, and then you get to this. Like it fit perfectly.
Like honestly, there is so much talent. And I will say this with NXT, I think you need to be willing to move some talent from Raw or SmackDown over to NXT.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the love of God, NXT needs help.
I like the brand though. I think they have a lot of great talent. And I think the problem is people sleep on the brand because it's not the black and gold brand anymore. But I'm like, we talk about Regal. His kid, Charlie Dempsey, is friggin' amazing. They have him with Gulak. And like, I like the fact that we're getting Gulak and Wesley coming up for the North American title. Like, they're actually showcasing them.
What I would do.
Good.
There's the rumors of Tyler Bate moving to SmackDown.
Yep, and Ilya Dragunov, correct?
You've got Butch, a.k.a.
Pete Dunne.
Peter Dune, as Kyle O'Reilly would say.
Yep.
You got Charlie Dempsey on NXT. Eventually, maybe next year's draft, put them together, reform British Strong Style.
Yes, with Charlie, Pete, and Tyler replacing Trent Seven. Okay, I like that.
You would have Pete Dunne take over the kind of Trent Seven
role.
Role. That's kind of like the Godfather, the leader of it all. Because Brawling Brutes.
No. I like banger after banger. I think you don't like Sheamus, Butch, and Ridge Holland.
I would rather see British strong style.
I feel you. I mean, given Ridge Holland, I mean, like we talk about accidents happen with Big E, but did you remember when you first saw him on NXT UK and he just came out and he was just like killing everybody? Like he had a look, and they tried on NXT. Remember he got hurt wrestling Gargano?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, and then I remember when they drafted him to SmackDown, it's like, him?
Ridge Holland, really?
Yeah, like I thought they fired this guy.
Right? Exactly. But I don't
Again,
know.
he has the look of a star.
He,
One of the rumors, and they always do this. They always seem to flip around the mid card titles. I really believe that Gunter and Austin Theory are going to switch, and I think that would be a great idea.
well, Theory would do wonders on SmackDown. Just the talent he could work with, and
Oh yeah,
especially doing throw on Raw. I would think that'd be cool.
oh yeah, and I love that Gunter is still the Intercontinental Champion. I what I would do, I would have him hold it till the end of the year.
You see, for me, like what he's doing. I mean, they talk about Randy Orton back in the day when he was the Intercontinental Champion for 7 months. This is just on a whole nother level. This is just one of the absolute top final bosses in the company. Keep it to the end of the year, like you mentioned, or maybe even early next year. He needs a lengthy title run, and it's just flourishing.
Well, hear me out.
Okay.
I did the math on it, and I believe it's early December, late November. It's right around and after Survivor Series, a little after that.
Yeah.
He holds it to that time. He will have the longest Intercontinental title reign of all time,
Is it even?
surpassing Honky Tonk.
I was about to say, is he surpassing the Honky Donkey Man?
I I really think that's what they're doing.
And I love it. Like that guy is one of those guys who's just such a bright star. And I got to ask you about this one now. So coming up to my next part of my list here, someone who was supposed to be a brighting star, Daniel Crimmins, and we're going to talk about this because you brought him up in a little trivia thing you gave me here. Muhammad Hassan goes from Raw to SmackDown. And if you remember, his final match on Raw was a squash against John Cena for the WWE Championship. Then he goes over to SmackDown, beats the Big Show, is in that 6-person tag for the SmackDown World title, has the infamous feud with The Undertaker, beats up everybody. The bombings happen. His gimmick gets canceled. Undertaker last rides him through the stage at the Great American Bash, loses, and that was the last of Muhammad Hassan.
You know, I'm going to say this about that. It was not his fault.
No,
He got hosed, and you know what? The thing that gets me, if I remember right, SmackDown was shot Tuesday. The attacks, if I remember right, was like Friday morning.
yes, I believe you're correct.
They had time to edit the show.
True, but they didn't.
And again, that was, I think, an instance where somebody probably went to Vince and said, "Hey, Vince, shouldn't we do this?" And he probably said, "Nope, nope, nope, we're doing it. It'll be edgy. It'll get people talking."
Yeah, people talking, and then
Well, because there's the old saying, "No press," or it said, "Bad press is good press."
yep,
No,
no, like especially with the London bombings happening, and then what they did with the Undertaker and that gimmick, and then he gets carted out the way he did, the symbolism of it, and the thing too, man, it's so crazy. Like again, he would have won that match, and he would have faced Batista, beat Batista in the nation's capital for the world heavyweight title. What could have been?
I think he would. I think he would have been a star. I think he may still be wrestling today, but you know what? He's found life outside of wrestling.
Right? He's a high school principal now.
Yeah. He's actually going to be in the new game, The Wrestling Code, which is kind of like an indie
Oh, that's
wrestling
cool.
game.
That's cool.
Graphics look good. They haven't done a release date yet. I think they just finished the mocap work, which, for those of you that don't know, if you're building a game from scratch, I mean from the ground floor, it's not easy.
Right. And I
And
mean,
they're not a huge publisher.
okay. I mean, I'm gonna have to check this out now that you brought this to my
Yeah,
attention.
I'll send you the link to it. Like they've got Scott Steiner, they've got some of the ECW guys. They got Johnny, whatever his nickname is this month.
Oh, well, wait, hold on. Hey, dude, he won his first boxing match, knockout, And then he called out Triple H and like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, congratulations, because going into boxing is not a thing. But he's like, I
No.
mean, Triple H. I mean, we all, at least I want a real fight. I'm like, dude. And then he was like, oh, if they asked me to come back, I would do it. Like, you think they'd want you back after that? My God.
Well, to be fair, he did take back Road Dogg and Billy Gunn after that shoot interview. You know the one I'm talking about.
Where he, oh, okay. First of all, they were drugged out of their mind. And for those who've never seen that one, this is when they were both were in TNA at the time. Oh God, it was bad. Billy Gunn bad-mouthed Triple H so bad. Same with Shawn Michaels.
They're
Oh,
basically just like he says, Hunter
uh,
was always a dick.
yeah. And they're like really like so much out of their minds. And then it's not even like you can't hide it. They're like really like drugged out. It's bad.
But see, that's what RF Video did.
Yep. Oh God, Rob Feinstein. Well, that's the reason why he was no longer in charge of Ring of Honor, if you remember, because then Kerry Silkin took over and all those great people.
Yeah, among other issues.
Yeah, well, God. But no, that was the thing. Did you ever own an RF video, or how did you like have a thing to like? Remember they had those subscriptions for RF video for those that remember. Did you ever do any of those?
I never did. I never did. But you know what? There are clips that I will watch on YouTube. You know, shoot video clips. Of course, I think the absolute best, Iron Sheik,
Yes, I
because it's chic.
I fuck your son. I fuck your daughter. Hulk Hogan. Fuck you and have a nice day.
Break him in the fuck him on the ass and make him humble.
Hembo. Be Brian Blair. Oh, Cheeky baby.
Cheeky baby loves you.
And he's fucking going to the diner asking for a beer, and then friggin' Eric Sims like, no, we're not gonna have a beer here. No, no,
And he just wants a beer.
just wants a beer. Leave him alone. But yeah, no. So you mentioned Marco Fanni, Muhammad Hassan, like we were talking about there. I digress, but no, dude, like he had one independent match. I forgot what year it was, but I did see he wrestled a Papa Don, who was on AEW Dark, and he's wrestled on the Northeast and the New York Wrestling Connection. He had one match with him, and then that was it. Like that was like he came out of retirement once, and I think he may have done a convention, but
I know he does, autograph signings from time to time.
yeah,
Um, I think the match that he came out of retirement for was really his way of saying, I want to see if I can do this.
and he looked good, and he looked good.
And then, I think he just is like, yeah, I'm good. And I
Well,
think I do want to address another great pick.
yeah, good.
June 2008,
Okay,
Edge gets drafted to Friday Night SmackDown, taking the WWE World Heavyweight Championship with him.
so we thought.
And the WWE title was already on SmackDown as well. Edge does a whole spiel, in the ring, says, I'm going to SmackDown and you're never going to see this title again. Well, Batista, who I think he was also going to, no, Batista was staying on the Raw
Yes.
and had lost a match the night before, which if he lost, was done.
Yep.
Just destroys Edge, hits him with the Batista bomb in the middle of the ring, goes to leave, and you hear the familiar riff, and it's CM Punk, who had just that night been drafted to Raw, cashing in Money in the Bank in his first Raw match, beating Edge, and later that night had that weird match with JBL.
Oh God. So we're gonna talk about 2008 CM Punk run here. So Punk wins, like you mentioned. He cashes the Money in the Bank on Edge, wins the WWE title. Then he gets into his first feud as the World Heavyweight Champion. His first run with the title on Raw was terrible. He wins the Money in the Bank. He has that match with Batista at the Great American Bash. Then he gets into the JBL feud, wins that. Then he gets taken out by Randy Orton, and they don't follow up until like 2011. So that feud goes over 3 years. And then that was the end of CM Punk's World Heavyweight title run. Then he becomes the tag champ with Kofi, then the Intercontinental Champion, loses the Intercontinental Championship to JBL, then he becomes Money in the Bank, and then the Jeff Hardy feud, and the rest is history on that run. But yeah, his first run as the WWE Champion sucked.
one of the few people to win Money in the Bank twice.
Yes, that's correct. But the second run with the Money in the Bank was better than the first one. I don't know what they couldn't see with that, like at the time. Like him and Randy Orton would have been a great match at the time.
Oh yeah.
But then they just fucked it up with just taking him off it like that. He didn't even get to defend it in the championship scramble.
No, and I think that's kind of why he got so bitter, you know.
Mhm.
But we got 2011 CM Punk, the summer of Punk in WWE. It's I think one of his greatest runs,
Mhm.
the infamous pipe bomb.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's funny, everything that he said would come true kind of has come true.
It has with the Triple H. He's going to give it to his doofus son-in-law and his idiot daughter. Well,
It did happen for a little bit,
it did.
but here's the thing: did it really?
Did it? True. Ugh.
But I'm just asking questions.
I know, but it's interesting to think about like around that time period too. And I'll go another one with you there. So we talk about a lot of the draft picks, and one that I really do kind of remember that was very interesting. Like everybody happened. This is actually kind of funny because it led to releases. They did this whole big thing of who's going to be drafted. They drafted like Kenzo Suzuki and A. Albert and all these people to Raw, and then they all got released, and you never saw them on Raw in 2005.
I remember it was like the supplemental draft.
Yes, and they put all these people on Raw, like Chuck Palumbo and all these people, and you never saw them.
Yeah, they were on, I think, like a backstage segment, and like I think it was like a pull apart brawl, and then the next morning, like WWE has come to terms on the release of the following individuals.
Yep, it's exactly what it was.
And then I remember, to me, one of the most iconic draft picks, and it was one I was actually there for. It was 2005, Kurt Angle getting drafted from SmackDown to Monday Night Raw.
Ooh, that was a good one. Yes, where he had that confrontation with Triple H. Yep.
Yep, it was in Binghamton, New York.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I was there for that. I at the time lived about an hour away. I went with my brother and one of his friends, and I just remember it and loving it. And so, mind you, this was in, like, if I remember, it was like end of June, because I remember schools had not been out very long. No, I was already graduate. This was 05. Wow, almost 20 years ago.
Right.
I'm old. The arena, something was up with the air, and you've been in a very hot arena.
Oh yeah.
I will tell you, Triple H had a very, very nice suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I'll send you the clip. You had Kurt Angle had like this really like a light blue shirt, or flare, and they all were literally sweating through their suits.
I know that you're correct on that because then they had the woo off between Kurt and Rick, and then him and Triple H were going out. Then Batista came out. Yeah, that was an interesting time because I remember there was that one match that Kurt Angle and Batista had on Raw, and that was it. That was it. That was the only time they
Yeah,
wrestled.
yeah. And I will tell you, one of the matches. So this would have been 04. Maybe it was 04. No, so it's 05. And this is one of the coolest things. It was when Muhammad Hassan was putting America on trial.
Oh yes.
And who was the judge? Stone Cold. Stone Cold.
Oh. Oh my God, I think of that, and I think of when Muhammad Hassan and Davari were debating Lawler and JR, and he told them, if you love it, then by God, or you either love America or by God, you leave it, which led to Muhammad Hassan's pay-per-view debut against Jerry the King Lawler. Like that sticks out from that time period, and also I got to bring this up just because, like with the draft, like going back to '09, like we talked about JR and Cole, like dude, I got to bring this up because we were talking about '08, '09, like Miz when he got drafted in 2009 to Raw and John Morrison got drafted to SmackDown, and he turned on John Morrison, hit him with the reality check, and people thought Morrison was going to be the star of the team. And then Miz just right out the gate, he's feuding with Cena. They have that feud, the match that happens for like 5 minutes at the Bash. Then they had the better match the next night, and then he became the U.S. champion. Like Miz really started to come to his own when he got to
Oh
Raw.
yeah. Well, I remember when Miz debuted.
Tatanka. He beat Tatanka.
Well, everybody kind of looked at it like, oh, that guy from the real world?
Well, if you remember, dude, he was just like the host of SmackDown, and he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. And then, like, Miz is going to be a WWE Hall of Famer.
Oh, you know what's going to happen, dude.
Like, I will say this. He has earned the respect. I may not have always liked him, but honestly, I would really like to see him get at least one last good run.
I mean, he did have that WWE Championship feud briefly. Like, he cashed it in. He beat Bobby Lashley, and then he lost it immediately during the pandemic era, the the Thunderdome era. But he's one of those guys, man. Like, you put him against anybody right now, instant generating heat. Like, he still has it. But at the same time, too, like he's a great veteran to work with a lot of the young guys. Like he helped mentor Logan Paul. And I think around that time period as well, like I'll even equate it back to earlier in 07, like when Miz was doing like the ECW stuff. Remember he had the Extreme Expose with him, and then he's off of ECW, and him and Morrison are the tag champs. They beat Matt Hardy and MVP, the start of the dirt sheet. Like SmackDown did wonders for him. And I also look at it from people like another standpoint, another draft that I'll really talk about here is like when Bobby Lashley went from SmackDown to ECW. Everybody hated it because he became the ECW champion, but he had a lot of great memorable moments on that show, you know, crashing through Umaga in the cage on ECW. It was an interesting time period, like to see those familiar faces in that draft as well. Like I'll go back to 2016, Heath Slater. He was the only that nobody picked him, but then you know he fought his way to get to SmackDown. And you know I have kids. I got kids, as you know, Daniel Crimmins.
Nobody gives a shit about your kids.
Nobody. I don't give a shit about your kids. Brock Lesnar is the man. And then Heath Slater and Rhino become the SmackDown Tag Champs. What'd you think about the Heath Slater storyline from that draft?
You know what? Honestly, I liked it. You know, it gave him something to do because honestly, Heath Miller, Heath Slater, whatever you want to call him, is so criminally underrated.
He was good. Here's the thing. I remember first seeing him on the NXT brand before the Nexus. Like he was mentored by, I believe, Christian. That was his pro on that one.
I think so.
Yeah. He was good. And then the Nexus happened, and then him and Justin Gabriel were in there. Then the core. I try to forget about the core. Now that happened.
Horrible theme song.
I'll be your end of days.
Wade Barrett absolutely hates that theme.
I've had enough. I'll make them say they'll never take another drop of blood from me. I'll be your end of days.
Bad news, Barrett.
Barrett. Yeah, because he had the core. Then they did the bad news Barrett. Then he was King Barrett. And also, if you want to talk about it, not really a draft, but like the night after WrestleMania, remember they brought Neville to Raw, and like then Neville kind of just went nowhere for a little while, and then
there was no explanation. There was no video package.
There was just here's Neville.
You have, and this is a thing that I've never understood.
Go ahead.
People like you, like me, and those like us.
Yes.
We watch NXT.
Yes.
Or we go online. We know who people are.
Yes.
A lot of people don't watch NXT, and they have no idea who these people are.
You have to give us a video package or a vignette or something.
Yeah. Introduce us to the person. Like,
look, I equated that to with the AEW with the whole Vikingo thing. And mind you, I like El Hijo del Vikingo, but you can't just bring out this AAA star that nobody's heard of like he's a somebody. You know what I'm saying? You have to.
The average wrestling fan has no idea.
That's the problem. You have to. I mean, we think like this, but you also have to be realist about that. Like, if you want to just to compare to the niche, and I say this with WWE, like a lot of people just watch Raw and SmackDown. Not a lot of people watch NXT. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also that's post WrestleMania, so you're going to get that good crowd feel. But like I remember when Bayley, they brought her in 2016 to the main roster. Like she got a big fever pitch because they also had presented Bayley as with Sasha Banks on WWE's main roster. So I also remember they brought Charlotte up and she lost to Natalya, and that was the only time we saw her. And she was the NXT Women's Champ at the time. And then of course the Women's Revolution happened. Like that was a weird one.
Oh yeah, like Cameron, didn't she drop the NXT Women to it was a, if I remember right, it was a fatal four-way. It was her, Bayley, Becky, and
Sasha.
Mercedes
Monet, who's now a free agent, Mr. Daniel Crimmins.
She's going to AEW.
Yeah, you know what?
I honestly, I think had Vince not come back, I think Jay White would be in the WWE. I think,
or I'll say FTR possibly.
Oh, I would be willing to bet. I would put money on that. I think people saw that and were like, "Yeah, I'm good."
That's exactly what they thought.
Now we also, I do want to mention draft, and there are a couple free agents that are not currently haven't done anything. There's Eric Young, who, according to the rumors, signed to the WWE.
Here's the thing. I see what they're doing with Nikki Cross. Like, I'd love to have some interaction there from the Sanity. I don't know what they could do with Eric Young. I really don't. He's there. I mean, if you put him on NXT, there's a lot of great matches he can have and work with a lot of the young guys and gals.
What I think you do.
Okay.
You remember how effective the Ministry of Darkness was?
Yes.
You have Schism mention a leader.
Have him be the leader of Schism. I like that, like the higher power type of deal. Yeah. Okay.
And have Joe Gacy as his right hand.
Again, folks, I'm going to say this right now. If you've not watched Joe Gacy, like the dude, I was very apprehensive. Like, okay, he's doing this cult thing and, he's just smiling. And then it blossomed into what we have now. And I'm like, this is friggin' cool. It's cool, man. I'm sorry.
I will say this. When you look at guys like Von Wagner, guys like Joe Gacy,
all right.
Who's the other dude? Grayson Waller. Of those three, if you tell me two of these guys are getting released, you can keep one of them. Who are you picking? I'm picking Joe Gacy. No hesitation.
Well, who was the other name? You mentioned Von Wagner, and who was the other one?
Von Wagner and Grayson Waller.
Oh, man. Here's the thing with Von Wagner. If they actually let him do some more stuff, because Von Wagner was kind of meh, you know what I'm saying? It's just, damn. With Von Wagner, he has potential. He has the look, but I think he's still very green. Grayson Waller, I would not put up there yet because he has so much left to do still in NXT. Like, he's a future NXT champion. He's a future North American champ, whatever. He is going to be one of the main stars of that brand, and you know it. But I would definitely pick out of those three. If they brought Joe Gacy up, I'd be fine with it.
Oh, yeah. I will say this. I have concerns with Wesley moving up to the main roster.
Well, it's too soon for him right now.
It is. It's at the same time. Do you try to get Trey Miguel, or it was him
and Zachary Wentz, who was former Nash Carter? Yeah.
I mean, it's never gonna be Nash Carter. He
burned that bridge. He screwed.
And it was Trey Miguel.
Yeah, he's an Impact. Well, he's an Impact right now. He's still signed Impact.
I think his contract is almost up.
Is it? Okay. Well, if Trey Miguel goes to WWE, him and put him right there, Wesley in NXT. I'm good with that.
I think you got an option there. What would worry me, and don't get me wrong, I like Wesley. I do. I think the kid has talent. He's got a good look. Kids like him. But if you bring him to the main roster, are you just going to have another Ricochet?
Well, that's the problem, too. It's like you already got, one Pretty Ricky. You got Ricochet right there. So why would you need a lot of these guys,
And it's because it's like they're so talented. Ricochet deserves so much better.
Well, he's teaming with Braun Strowman now, who we just found out has a concussion. So
yeah, and hopefully it's not a serious one.
Right. Well, that's actually someone who was interesting to bring up because, I mean, this all kind of coincides with drafts and bring-ups because I didn't do drafts for a while. But when Braun Strowman came in as the black sheep of the Wyatt family, and the only time you ever saw him on NXT, he was a rosebud, like a little bit with Adam Rose.
I think he was the baby.
Yes, he was the baby. And then he comes in as the black sheep of the Wyatt family. And I'm going to say right now, when he first came in, big guy, but green, very, very green.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got better.
Then he got released.
Then he got released, and then he tried to control his narrative. And I'm sorry, but he was doomed from the start. It was doomed from the start.
When your company is literally called Control Your Narrative, and they don't say, "Here's your winner," it's so and so has controlled his narrative.
That's
No.
what they thought. No, it ain't working. And mind you, EC3 is the only one I think that's still there. I don't even think they're doing shows anymore. I think it's just he created this thing and then everybody went back to the WWE
Oh,
or
it still exists. It still exists, but it's now a thing in NWA.
oh, that's nice. Okay. Was it just a bunch of indie dudes?
I think so.
Oh god.
But we have people, I always like it when people who didn't work out in WWE go elsewhere. Like Steve Macklin, who was
Dude,
in WWE.
the Impact World Heavyweight Champion Steve Macklin. Oh my god. That dude has been hitting on all cylinders. The fiance there, I believe him and Deanna Purrazzo are now married.
They are.
Him and Magnus, who's now back at Impact. I want to see that. I want to see it so much.
And it's what gets me is they put WWE in a hiring freeze, and you think of all these people that WWE was, what Triple H was close to signing. We're talking Jay White, Tama Tonga, Nick Aldis.
Yep.
And Triple H is just sitting back in his office thinking, shit.
And the thing with Nick Aldis, like, first of all, he's a TNA OG. He's an Impact OG, which makes sense. And you also open up the gate for Magnus and Mickey James against Deanna and Steve Macklin, so that works. But man, like it's very interesting to see from that standpoint. And I mean, as far as like other drafts and stuff, like with all the call-ups and stuff, like I'm gonna bring this one up. It kind of saddens me a little bit because he's one of the NXT OGs and I loved him. Tyler Breeze, when they brought him up to the main roster and they put him with Summer Rae, and he had that feud with Dolph Ziggler. And then they started the Fashion Police with Breezango, which went off. But when he first came to the roster, it was not looking pretty for Tyler Breeze.
That pretty. That's
Pretty?
good there.
It was not looking pretty.
We talk about one of the greatest NXT call-ups. I think it's got to be Kevin Owens.
Well, he comes in, lays out Cena, then he beats him on pay-per-view. Clean.
First pay-per-view.
Clean. And he wins.
You got Sami Zayn, who honestly, another guaranteed Hall of Famer.
Right. Well, his call-up was he went right in. He was in the Rumble, then he went right in there with KO, and he had a lot of great matches too. That's another good call-up. Oh yeah. 2004. If I don't mention this, I mean, how does this not be on here? Shelton Benjamin goes from world's greatest tag team with Charlie Haas on SmackDown, goes to Raw, first match on Raw, pins Triple H.
Oh yeah. Which at the time Triple H didn't lose that much.
He did not lose that much. I mean,
there was something about this kid that people saw and were like, that Triple H must have seen and said, this kid gets it.
The only problem with Shelton Benjamin that's always held him back, he was not a good talker. On the mic, he was not the best. In ring wise, he was absolutely amazing, still amazing to this day. And that led to obviously the Intercontinental Championship run in 2004, the infamous Money in the Bank spot where he runs the ladder and clotheslines Chris Jericho right off of it, which is still sick.
Let's not forget his former manager, Thea Vidal, who played his mama.
Thea Vidal, the comedian who had her own show in Thea in the 90s, Shelton Benjamin's mama.
Which that would not fly today.
No, if you guys remember what it was back in the day where Shelton Benjamin kept losing, and then they had to bring in Thea Vidal, comedian, who played his mama. And
played all the racial stereotypes.
Oh, absolutely. My favorite was the interaction with Val Venus. Maybe you've seen some of my films, Shaving Ryan's Privates, or how about Harry Twatter?
And don't forget her backstage segment with Big Daddy V, Viscera.
The world's largest love machine. Viscera wanted a piece of Shelton Benjamin's mama. And that was a pay-per-view match. New Year's Revolution, Shelton Benjamin and Viscera. Why? Why?
I miss Viscera. I do.
God rest his soul. Like when he started making out with Lillian Garcia and he had the hots for Trish, he's got to have it. He went from being this big mean ass monster in the Ministry of Darkness, and before that he was King Mabel. But then they fucking made him the world's largest love machine, wore the satin pajamas, and it was funny and it was good.
Can you imagine having to wear those in those hot arenas?
Yeah, he probably stunk to high heavens with that. And then Big Daddy V really rejuvenated his career. My God,
Oh,
he specimen. But yeah, no, that was an interesting one. Uh, I'm trying to think also the call ups. Would you get? Here's the thing about one I'll mention: Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke started in NXT. Like she's another one that got called up too soon because they put her on Raw. She became Charlotte's lackey, and then kind of really didn't do a lot. Like she was with Titus Worldwide for a little bit with Titus Apollo
worldwide.
Worldwide, and she did some stuff. But dude, and of course being Mandy Rose's tag team partner before Mandy Rose went to NXT, and being the 24/7 champion, the Reggie stuff. But yeah, Dana was another one I felt was kind of called up a little too soon.
Oh yeah, I think that's a definite fair assumption. I think she's got an amazing look,
Mhm.
and it works for her.
I mean, I also quite like this wasn't too soon, but this also was a funny one in '05, like we talked about earlier. Randy Orton's hurt. He hurts his shoulder. He comes back in the summer of '05, RKO's The Undertaker, gets drafted to SmackDown, and that started his great SmackDown run, of course, with the Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio feud. Eddie's not up here. He's down here in hell. Which, by the way, Chavo Guerrero, you son of a bitch, working everybody the way you did on Twitter.
I Part of me still thinks that he's angling for
A match in WWE to be a part of that feud with Dominic and all that. I'm thinking.
why not? Why not?
Right. If Vicky Guerrero's done with AEW too, why not? Give me something. Give me something.
And people fell for it.
They did. He was good. It was magic, man. And speaking of also Chavo, I think the fact that this was part of kind of like the draft too. He gets drafted to Raw. Kerwin White is born. He denounces his Hispanic heritage. I'm a. If it's not Kerwin White, it's not right. He's driving around the golf cart.
And now that theme song is used by Michael Cole.
Michael Cole. Yep.
Michael Cole.
Michael Cole. That's another one that kind of gets me. But yeah, no, this is
And
just
again, that is another gimmick that if they tried that today,
not. Oh God, you kidding me? Oh, they would be up in
I
arms.
do wonder, which
Yes.
unfortunately gets drafted to Raw, and Eddie passes away not long after that.
Right.
You wonder what would have happened if. Where would that gimmick have gone?
I mean, he was feuding at the time mainly with Shelton Benjamin, and then really kind of nothing came from it. Like if Eddie wouldn't have died, I don't know. I honestly I don't think that I don't think it would have lasted too longer. I think they probably would have put him back to Chavo.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the call ups too as well. I mentioned a brief one that was kind of like another one too soon. Apollo Crews when he first came up in 2016. That
Yes.
was another one that was too soon. Corbin came up in 2016 as when he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, the Lone Wolf.
Way too soon.
Way too soon. But that's what these drafts and a lot of these call ups give us. And I think for me, I'll mention this because he's out on neck surgery. But when he comes back, I think it's going to be interesting. When Bobby Roode came up and he's right going for the U.S. title, like I think that wasn't too soon because he had a great run in NXT. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, as the glorious champion. Yes,
And what got me was he's a heel in NXT.
he's babyface on the main roster.
Literally like 5 days later.
Yep. Or I mean, well, look at Seth Rollins when he came up. Like he was the NXT champion, and then he's on Survivor Series, and then the Shield is born. He's a heel. Look at Big E. He was the NXT champion, and then the days later, he's with Dolph Ziggler, and he's a heel.
Yeah. And then he drops it to Bo Leave.
Holy
He's another one signed to WWE.
Uncle Howdy. Nothing.
Which Bray supposedly hurt. I hope it's. I personally think it's mental health related.
Mhm.
Which that's not something you want to screw with.
No.
Though maybe he's good. Maybe because apparently they know because they looked at the pool of eligible draftees.
Mhm.
Bray wasn't pictured.
So that would be interesting to see where he goes. I'm also curious to see where Alexa Bliss is going to go in this whole little story that we have going here. It's going to be really interesting to see. Now, I'm going to say this right now. I think it would be interesting if they split people. I know they tried to split the New Day a couple of years ago, and that really didn't work out too well. But Street Profits. I could see Montez staying on Raw with Bianca, and I could see Angelo going over to SmackDown.
I could see Dawkins going either to SmackDown or NXT.
Yes, he is one of the originals in NXT too. That would be interesting.
I could see him, doing something, in the North American title, doing maybe even a run with the title.
Yeah, I mean, you also have the Judgment Day too as well. Like, obviously Rhea's on SmackDown, so I think Rhea.
I've heard one of the rumors I hear is that Judgment Day is moving to SmackDown.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard Bloodline and Judgment Day are flipping.
Okay, that would be very interesting to see the Bloodline on Raw and the Judgment. Okay. Uh, there's really a lot of level of uncertainty, but it's good, and I'm excited. Has everybody stoked? And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about the original draft too, that really comes to mind is the Undertaker gets drafted by Ric Flair, and that look, he's like, "Are you serious? You're gonna keep this show?" And The Rock goes to SmackDown, like
I remember he's just sitting there, like, kind of lean back, and you hear Ric Flair saying he's drafting the Undertaker, and he just kind of leans forward, like,
"What?
What'd you just say?
What'd you just say?" It was so good. But isn't it amazing to see where we started from in 2002 to where we are now in 2023, 21 years later with these doggone drafts?
I'm really looking forward to seeing where Triple H sends people.
Mhm.
Like, they could release the entire list online today and say, "Hey, this is where people are going to go." I wouldn't want to see it because I would want to be surprised.
I think that's the best part of anything about wrestling now is just the level of uncertainty and the surprise factor. And man, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this draft does. And we mentioned a lot of great picks for worst and best drafts and call ups. I mean, I'm kind of like chock full of like what we just had with the call ups. Do you have any other ones you'd like to add, Mr. Daniel Crimmins, before we close?
I think greatest call ups, you gotta go with the Shield.
Yes, from pretty much destroying Ryback and being CM Punk's bodyguards, and then just where they were. Absolutely,
I could watch them destroying Ryback all day.
Oh yeah. Well, Kofi, yeah,
Ryback.
yeah, it's fucking Ryback. But I'll add on to that. Kofi Kingston. Well, here's the thing: the ECW crew, because we were talking about how that was early developmental before NXT. Kofi came from ECW. Sheamus came from ECW. Friggin' Shelton Benjamin was on ECW. Christian was on ECW. Jack Swagger was on ECW. Braden Walker, no.
Knock knock.
Who's there? Braden Walker. I'm gonna knock your brains out. Why? Why?
I've got to address it. There was a video when we talked about it on an old show. Knock knock, who's there? Braden
Walker. James
and
Storm.
you just see James Storm just doing this, like,
just laughing. It was James Storm. It was Beer Money against Matt Hardy and Chris Harris for the TNA tag titles.
A couple of years ago, he did a show, and I do feel bad for Chris Harris. People are still doing it.
I mean, he's in a better place. I know he did some TNA shows and they reunited America's Most Wanted, which was awesome. But yeah,
like, it's been this long. Just be done with it.
Right. And I mean, that was also just such a funny time with ECW because it gave us a lot of the great stars that we had. They made Zack Ryder the star of the Woo 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 Kid. You know it. That was started on ECW to where we are now. And now he's always ready, Matt Cardona. And I see him coming back to the WWE in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And he's actually coming up to the Buffalo area. We have
really?
a couple of small indie shows here, or indie companies. He's wrestling for one of the titles. So who knows? Maybe he's gonna win it.
We shall see, and we shall see what goes on with these drafts. I hope you guys enjoyed our mixed bag of talking about call-ups, some drafts, and just all the wrestling news as we did. This was kind of off the cuff, you and I, man, because we were talking about everything. It's been a busy wrestling week, and I love doing.
It has.
And I love doing this with you, Dan. But we got to talk about folks we got for the next episode because we got 2 more episodes left of season 1, and we're gonna have a big one for season 2 when we get that going. But Daniel, Katie Vick said what? Katie Vick says what?
Which, folks, be ready, because I consider this to be the worst segment in WWE history.
So our next episode, we are going to talk about the worst segments, angles, and just some of the most distasteful things that you've seen in professional wrestling history. And we're going to start off with Katie Vick. That's why we keep saying Katie Vick say what? Probably one of the worst ideas ever, moaning in a church, and there's literally a funeral going on in the next room. Oh, it's something. Oh, it's something. Oh, and
God.
Speaking of something, you, my friend, you and Mr. Moses Marquez are going against Dazzy Dangerously and the Phoenix for the Max Wrestling Tag Team titles, knowledge tag team bout for the Max Wrestling Tag Team Championships.
That we are. I've looked at all the options. You know me, I like to keep people guessing.
Yep.
And I thought, you know what? Need myself a mercenary. Need somebody that has held their trivia title in the past.
Yep. Mount Moses is a former knowledge champion. Yep.
And I figure history, why not? A little fun.
I like it. And guys, check out Max Wrestling's Full House coming up really, really soon. And yeah, man, that's gonna do it for us this week. As always, it's a pleasure and a privilege. I hope you guys subscribe and check out each and every one of these episodes of Uncaged.
And Katie Vick says what?
And Katie Vick says what? And really just enjoy when we get to our next episode, folks, because I hope you enjoyed us listening to just really talk about the draft and just everything going on in the world of wrestling, because it's what we do, it's what we love, and we appreciate each and everyone that checks out these fine shows. And you can check us out, SM Show on MCL92, Capital Championship Wrestling, LFCfights.com. All my links will be in the description, including Daniel's Instagram page, which give Daniel a follow over there on Instagram. And Daniel, do you also want to plug the TSK Chronicles? You guys have some great episodes over there.
We got some stuff coming. We got more stuff coming down the pipeline. Not sure when, but I will be updating you when that happens. But folks, Katie Vick says what? It's gonna be an interesting one. We will say that.
2 more episodes to go to end season 1. And guys, thank you so much for listening to this draft talk, this call-up talk, and everything in the world of professional wrestling. For Daniel Crimmins, my name is Mike Larkin. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.